Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest edition of our entertainment show. As you know by now, a special feature of entertainment shows, we look at the cult classic sort of section where we look at TV series throughout the decades, throughout various genres, whether it's a comedy, crime, romance, action, drama, suspense. And we look back in the decades, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s on TV series that are still being played today all around the world for the last 30 or 40 years. This week, we're featuring on Knight Rider, David Hasselhoff, one of his iconic early productions in terms of TV series. He played the role of Michael Knight. Knight Rider aired in the United States in cable TV from 1982 to 1986 for 4 seasons. And some of the main stars, aside from David Hasselhoff, that appeared on Knight Rider were Edward Mulhern, who played the character Devon Miles. And we also, our guest star this evening, she played a role of April Curtis. She played it for 22 episodes. She was one of the main sort of female leads alongside Rebecca Ferguson, the one and only Rebecca Holden. And Rebecca, going back roughly 40 years now to when you're a young, say, adolescent, young adolescent female growing up in the world. How did Knight Rider come about for you? How did the opportunity present itself? And what was the character April Curtis prescribed out to you in terms of Knight Rider, in terms of what they were looking for?
Oh my goodness, that's a lot to start with. Okay, first of all, I don't know. I can't remember that back that far. Can you? It was a wonderful, wonderful time. I was new to Hollywood. I had started out my career in New York City. I had been studying voice and piano. I was always a music student, and a producer named Aaron Spelling, who I'm sure you're familiar with as well for many of his shows and Love Boat and so on, saw one of the commercials that aired on the Super Bowl. I was made a Brett girl as soon as I got to New York, and that led me to lots of other commercials like Chevrolet and Dentine and Ivory Soap and Kellogg's and on and on. And so I was doing many commercials and modeling and magazine covers. And when he saw me on the Super Bowl, my agent sent me out to the West Coast, and I started doing episodic television. And I had worked for NBC so very much that the producers of Knight Rider came to me and said, we'd like to bring you in and do a scene with David and see how the chemistry is. And we had the best time, and we laughed, and we had a fabulous time. And I remember them saying, can you give us a look that's not so glamorous? What would you look like with glasses on? And I said, well, I can show you right now. And I pulled my own glasses out of my purse and put them on. And April, the computer expert, was born. So before I even made it home, they had already called my agent and said, we would love to have her on the show. And it was just a magical time.
And playing a computer was a sort of a geeky sort of role. Did you find that sort of fun and entertaining? Normally, when young girls portray roles in TV sitcoms, it's always sexy, seductress, bikini type sort of roles. Playing a nerdy sort of computer whiz. Did you find that a refreshing sort of challenge? Did you have to think about it?
I loved it because I was always the studious type in school. I was a straight A student. I was always, anytime you looked for me, you could always find me somewhere with a book. But I was not a computer expert at that time. So that was sort of all acting. But they gave me all kinds of challenges to do. And I learned computer on a need-to-know basis, I guess you would put it. But no, April was She was resourceful. She had integrity. She was loyal to her companions and to her colleagues. She was inventive. She invented many of the things that Kit then was able to do, his powers. So I loved her. I thought she was a wonderful role model for young women, you know, because she was smart and she had good character. And I think she represented we females very well.
And Rebecca, was that a joyful time working in the TV sitcom series in the 80s in terms of the productions that were on in sort of cable, sort of TV? Was it a time that was good to be a young actress in that sort of decade in terms of roles? Was it challenging? Was it exciting? Was it sort of enticing?
It was exciting for me because I worked on so many various shows. And every time you walk onto a new set, it's a whole new family of people, and you must fit in with that little group and adhere to their ways of working. So it was always a challenge, and I was constantly working on various shows. Knight Rider was a great family. You know, when you're a regular on a series, it does become like a family because you're spending so many hours with, you know, your cast of characters and all the production crew and the directors, and so you become very close because you're working very long hours. I also loved all the sitcoms that I did, the comedies, because I love doing comedy. There's something about comedy that when it works, it's rhythmical. And so because I'm a musician, I think the comedy came very naturally for me. And I love doing those shows. And of course, we did those before a live audience. You'd rehearse it like a play all week. And then at the end of the week, they'd bring in a live audience, and you did it in front of a live audience. And then they would turn the audience once so that the new people coming in hadn't heard the jokes before. And so it was always a challenge. Every show I worked on was a little bit different. And so it was fun. You were always challenging yourself to a new task.
And Rebecca, one of the stories you'd often hear about the 80s TV sort of sitcoms is obviously you could have the main sort of real leading sort of role, leading sort of character. And some sitcoms, some of those characters can be quite reclusive in between breaks and in between sort of takes. But speaking about David Hasselhoff and the stories I heard about David Hasselhoff, once the camera started rolling, David very much intermingled with all the rest of the cast and normal conversations, normal joking, cracking around.
Oh, yes.
It wasn't a very case that in between takes that David would go to his trailer and you wouldn't see him until the next sort of shoot would be taking place. He was very one that sort of like the common sort of chat, dare I say.
I think you're exactly right about that. David's very personable, has a wonderful personality, loves to interact with everyone. We would have sometimes when we were working, and you know, in television, you have to be very disciplined because time is money and you have a lot of setups to accomplish each day. It's not like when you're working in film and you maybe do a few pages each day. We had quite a bit of work to do each day. And so normally you're very disciplined and very aware of the time factor, but there would be times when we would just start giggling and the laughter would just continue, and they'd say action and we'd just all break out in laughter. We had fun. It was a good time. It was a wonderful time. I cherish the memories on the set.
And Rebecca, appearing as a regular role for 22 episodes as you did, in terms of a working week, in terms of being involved in a season or a season or more in times that, was there very much downtime? Was that very much the one project? Could you get involved in anything else really in terms of when you were committed to Knight Rider for those sort of 22 episodes? Because back then in the 80s, it's not a story where TV sort of seasons were shot now in maybe 2 or 3 months. A TV season in the 80s could go back, it could be rolling and take 10 months to shoot one season.
Yes, and we did some 2-hour movies during that time as well. So yes, it's a big time commitment, but they were very flexible with me because they knew I had a music career and I sing for many charitable events. And so usually those were in the evening, and I would be offset in time to be able to make them. But yeah, when you're doing a series, it's pretty much a full-time commitment.
And I suppose, Rebecca, when you hear that Knight Rider over 92 foreign countries in the world that has been shown, dubbed in so many different sorts of languages, cult following in the places like Germany, France, Russia, they even have in these conventions and stuff, like people travel all over the world with their modified kit cars and sort of repercussions like that. Do you still get blown away? And have you been at one of those conventions yourself and seen those kit cars or those diehard fans up close? And have they ever sort of sent you fan mail in terms of the character April as such?
Absolutely. We have events all over the world, and you're exactly right, James, that there are fan clubs that have developed all over the world as people found each other on the internet and became friends. And that's one of the wonderful things about this show. It has forged so many friendships around the world and brought people together through their love of this particular show. And they share their memories, and then they share what they learned through the show about good winning over evil with their children. And so it continues on, even as the show continues in syndication today. But yes, there are events all over the world. I've been to some in Italy, and of course there's a huge fan club in Germany. They have a huge event called the Star Cars event, and then they branched that off and then had a completely Knight Rider event because there were so many Knight Rider fans in Las Vegas. I've been to one in UK several times. We had 70,000 people, I believe, at one of them. And they had a parade of the replica kit cars. And you're exactly right. The fans build their own replicas of the kit car. And we had 30 in a parade, if you can believe it or not. And Michael Chaffee, you believe it. And Michael Chaffee, who was the original designer of the kit car for Universal, he had worked for the Mattel company before that. And he designed kit, and he is invited as a guest to many of these conventions as well. And he gives an entire PowerPoint presentation of all of the computer parts and so on, and all the components that go into building the kit car, and standing room only at these things as the guys learn, and gals, I must admit, learn how to make their own replicas. There was also a guy in Atlanta, Georgia, and his full-time job was his company called Night Designs. Can you believe that was his entire company was building kit cars for people, or providing the parts that they would buy from them. So it's become such an amazing phenomenon, really. They call it the Knight Rider hobby. And like I say, the thing that makes me so happy is that it's brought people together all around the world, because it's bonded them and in the love of this show. And when we were doing it, we were having a wonderful time. We loved all of our cast and crew, and it was a wonderful job. But I don't think you ever realize when you're on an isolated set how it's exactly resonating, when it goes out into the ether and it's received by someone on the other end. How are they going to receive it, and how is it going to resonate with them? And so to realize that it's really touched so many hearts and brought people together. And I think one of the things that, of course, everybody loved Kit, but also they loved the theme of the show, which was one person can make a difference. And I hear so many wonderful stories, James, as I travel around, from fans who heard that theme and they took it to heart, and then they reenacted it in their own lives. They've gone out and strived to actually make a difference in the world. And that to me is a truly remarkable thing.
I suppose, Rebecca, for you now, quick question. Obviously, 22 episodes you appeared in Knight Rider. Mm-hmm. When you're on set and you see David Hasselhoff talking to a car and sort of mimicking, and for the very first time, and trying mimicking a car talking back to him and mimicking his facial expressions as if a car was talking back to him, did you feel sort of feeling this is really bizarre, really? And after a few 5 or 6 episodes, oh, well, that's the norm. David's just talking to the car again.
Well, actually, Bill Daniels, who just turned 95, I think someone told me a few days ago. Bill Daniels played the voice of Kit. And he had the greatest job in showbiz because he came in once a week. He didn't have to go through wardrobe or makeup. He just came in and he laid down all of his lines. But when we were actually on set, Bill was not there. So Kit's lines were read just by a script girl and kind of a monotone. So we had to use our imagination and envision how Kit would be speaking those lines. Actually, Bill Daniels will be speaking those lines with a little bit of humor and wry sarcasm that he had, and then react to what was in our minds, not what we were actually hearing. That's called acting.
That's called acting. And Rebecca, for last two questions for you. For a second last question, have you ever been to Ireland, and what are your memories of being to Ireland if you've come here?
It has always been my dream to come to Ireland. You know, my ancestry, as you can probably tell from my coloring, is English and Irish, and I've always envisioned coming to Ireland. So that's definitely on my bucket list. So hello, and sending lots of love and light to all of our Knight Rider fans there in Ireland. And
my final question for you, Rebecca Holden, I know you do an awful lot of singing, and you're a professional singer by trade, and it's your main profession, a sort of such. And is it a busy time for you now in 2022 post pandemic to have audiences and have crowds back and being able to listen to hear you sing, gone from the singing into Zoom sort of screens for Zoom sort of audience? Are you delighted to be back singing in front of big crowds again?
I love singing in front of big crowds. I love the interaction that you have with a live audience. It's like no other. And I've been performing for a lot of charitable benefits. Just 2 nights ago, I sang for a big benefit concert to benefit Ukraine and all of the refugees there. Last week, I sang for Operation Gratitude. That's a wonderful national organization that we have here that makes care packages for the troops and little stuffed animals and Care Bears for the children that they can give to them before they deploy. So there's always a benefit, there's always a need, and I think music has the power to uplift and inspire and to unite us all. And so it is always, I felt it's my calling and my duty to provide music whenever I can. I think we are given gifts and talents and various abilities in this life. Everybody's different. Everybody's given a different gift, and we're to use those gifts to make a difference in this world. And for me, it's giving back through music.
On that note, Rebecca Holden, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening to relive your memories playing April Curtis, 22 episodes in Knight Rider, all your charity work as well. Rebecca Holden, a pleasure talking to you. Stay safe and God bless. Thank you, Rebecca.
God bless.